Folks, BetOnline is the world's most trusted betting platform and your number one source for online betting in 2025. Whether you're a seasoned fan or a first-time bettor, BetOnline is your ultimate game day companion. With the largest selection of odds on everything from NBA and college basketball to UFC and the NHL, BetOnline continues to be your number one sports betting source. From every three-pointer to hat trick, BetOnline has you covered with odds, stats, and more for every game, every play, and every win. BetOnline, the game starts here. Enjoy the show, my friends. And hello, friends. Welcome back to Flyperbole. I am Steve Chico. This is Ryan Quigley. And Quigs, question to start off this week. I was at the gym. Not to humble brag here, working.
We get it, Steve.
I know. I'm in such incredible.
We understand.
Incredible shape. People, go down the street and say, "How is that man alive?" It's a good time. But I was at the gym and I heard a song that triggers nothing but bad memories in me. And do you know what that song is, Ryan, quickly?
Old Town Road.
No, although Old Town Road's not a favorite of mine by any means. No, it's Chelsea Dagger, which I think at least half the listeners will understand my disdain for this song. But I had a horrifying realization because I went into the Broad Street Hockey Slack to complain about it. And if I did this like 10 years ago, a bunch of people would have been like, "Oh yeah. Oh, that's fucking terrible. I'm sorry to hear that, like that, fuck that song." And now it's like with all the youngins and everything, the people who haven't been Flyers fans for as long, they don't have the traumatic memories associated with Chelsea Dagger that I and everybody my age that's a Flyers fan does. So if you're not familiar, if you are one of those youngins, Chelsea Dagger it was the Chicago. I don't know if it currently is.
I was about to ask. Yes, it's still their goal song. Let me see if I can
you Google that and I'm going to talk about it. But Chelsea Dagger was the Chicago Blackhawks goal song during their 2010 Stanley Cup run when they beat the Flyers, which I don't like to talk about, but hey, it is a thing that happened. And sadly, it's the last great Flyers playoff run. So that's what we have to talk about. But Chelsea Dagger, its song goes, God, just thinking about it, I want to vomit. But I heard Chelsea Dagger and it brought back just horrible memories of Patrick Kane and Dustin Byfuglien and just Jonathan Toews, just hate.
So Chelsea Dagger is still the Chicago Blackhawks goal song. Apparently they made the decision a couple years ago saying like, we're going to keep Chelsea Dagger as our goal song as we enter this new era. So they're sticking with it. Apparently I haven't watched any Blackhawks games because they fucking suck, Steve. So I have chosen to not watch them, but
they fucking suck. And also they're just a shithole organization that frankly they should have been wiped off the map like 10 years ago, but that's the NHL for you.
I mean, that seems a little harsh, but
is it a little harsh?
It's very bad.
For their numerous crimes.
They're very, very bad. Yeah.
For their numerous crimes.
It was real bad, but yeah, they are, quite despicable for all of that. And also for this fucking goal song that is just the most, and it's a shame because I used to actually really, really like the Fratellis, the band that did the song Chelsea Dagger. Like their first album, I thought was super fun. I remember I was in like middle school at the time. And I remember, we'd be like on our way to like the water park in the summer and we'd put on the album and we'd listen to it. And we thought it was so much fun. It was a great time. And then the fucking Chicago Blackhawks ruined it. They ruined a small piece of what made my childhood memorable. And it's really, really, really sad. So, yeah, that kind of sucks.
It does suck, but yeah, it's just like, imagine one of your least favorite memories has a soundtrack, and that's
exactly
the key part of it. Like, I know people have like different relationships with different teams as far as they hate. Like, me personally, I despise the New Jersey Devils. I really hate the Pittsburgh Penguins. Those are like the top two easily. The Chicago Blackhawks are up there because they beat the Flyers in a cup final. I would also, for a long time, the Red Wings were up there. I let go of that Red Wings hate at some point, but for a long time, I really hated the Red Wings, and I really resent the Blackhawks. So, like, I think a lot of people, newer Flyers fans, people who have become fans in the past like 15 years or so, don't feel that way about it like I do, and a lot of people my age, but it just triggers me. It just makes me think of that Stanley Cup final and how infuriating that team was. And then if I really go down a spiral, then I think about how the Flyers got robbed in the draft, where they were the worst team. They should have gotten Patrick Kane, but no, they got number 2, and they got JVR, and JVR was okay, but JVR wasn't Patrick Kane. And then, being a Flyers fan is fun.
I was just thinking about this. So I think I know your answer is going to be Chelsea Dagger, but like, I'll be honest, and certainly I'm sure this is a hot take, but in my opinion, the Rangers goal song is way worse than Chelsea Dagger. I've never noticed this. I absolutely despise whatever the hell that song is called. I cannot stand it, Steve. Like, every time the Rangers score a goal at MSG, I want to rip the head off of like infant children, anything near. I don't care. Like, I hate that song so much. It's ridiculous. It sucks. It's a bad song. And it's just, everyone's like, whoa. And I'm like, what are you, like, it's just so bad. And it just annoys me so much.
That's fair. I mean, I've never noticed it, to be honest. And
the Rangers goal song?
Yeah, I've never noticed it. I don't really pay attention. Yeah.
Really? That's shocking.
There's something about Chelsea Dagger that has stuck out to me, and it stuck out to me specifically during that run, but then, all the years after too, because Chicago was on national telecast like every year because they were a hot commodity. But something about that,
it sounds like the song is like teasing you. You know what I mean? And I think that's
which is why it's a great goal song for them.
Yeah. Like, objectively, it is a top tier goal song. Like, the reason we hate it is because we have this like trauma attached to it. You know what I mean? Like, there's that association.
It's annoying as shit though. If I had to hear it like 5 times a game, I'd probably want to just
unless you're a Blackhawks fan, then you're.
But yeah, even then, it probably gets annoying at a point. It's an annoying song.
Yeah.
Like, it's a fine song in a vacuum where you're not hearing it all the time, but it gets pretty annoying when you hear it on the reg.
I'll say this: if you're drunk and that song starts playing, I think that's a different story. I think I'd be having a really good time.
Being drunk changes everything.
It does. Yeah. I'd be pumped.
That's just how life goes right there. It changes everything. But I was thinking about that this week. And then I was also thinking about, so the Phillies just changed their score bug, which the score bug's the thing that has the scores of the game in either the upper left-hand corner of the screen or right in the bottom. But, it's the thing that tells you who's playing and what the score is, right? And us Flyers fans, people who watch hockey, have been dealing with the newer score bug for months now, since the start of the season. Because the new one's bland as shit. It just says
awful.
It just says PHI. It says the first 3 letters of the city of who's playing, and then it tries to correspond with the jersey that's being, of the team that's playing, right? And it just is so bland how it currently looks. Like, in the Flyers Penguins game, which we're recording this Wednesday night. That was Tuesday night. So last night, Flyers Penguins game, the Flyers wore their black jerseys and the Penguins were white. So the scorebug colors were just black and white. Like, that's as bland as it gets.
No orange. Very weird.
No orange. And I understand, like, wanting to dumb it down for the idiots who tune in, like, whoa, what team's which? I can't tell who Flyers are versus Penguins. Like, you have to be a real grade A moron and not be able to tell that. But man, it's so funny watching all of my Phillies friends who don't watch hockey see this atrocity for the first time. And it's just like, because spring training started and they're starting to televise games, and all the Phillies fans are like, no, what happened? And we know what happened, but they don't know what happened. And the biggest loss is, I'm going to try and pull up a graphic to go with this, but the biggest loss has to be when the Phillies would play the Pirates, and they both have P logos, right?
Mm-hmm.
And because of that, when it be 0-0, it would say poop up there. So I'm going to pull up this USA Today article to present here for all of you viewers on YouTube. And I'm getting better at this. I can do this better now. But yeah, so there we go. So this is the new one. It just says BAL with the orange and black of the Baltimore Orioles, and PHI with the white and red of the Phillies. Okay.
For the Phillies, it's not that bad. For the Flyers, It looks bad, but for the Phillies, it looks better.
The Flyers, it looks horrible. But regardless, like, it's way better with the logo. Because if you look at what on this DraftKings post where to put it on a tombstone, RIP, I'm sorry, the logo is better every time. 100%. It's got personality. It pops. It looks way better. And man, we will miss that poop for the P00P. One of the funniest things when it happens. It's one of the great little sports events. Everybody's always like, poop
game. I remember like looking at the Phillies schedule, and I'm like, all right, when are the Pirates coming to town? And then I see it's like, all right, April 30th. It's the poop game, baby. Let's go get that poop. And I'll stop sharing now. But yeah, we're gonna miss the poop score bug, and we're completely gone from the screen right now. And now I got it back. Hooray! But yeah, it's a bummer, and I just hate this generic or gentrification, I guess maybe is the term there. But they've just made these things so generic at this point. It really just irritates me. Because look at the Eagles Super Bowl. Fox rolled out one of those too, where it's just the first, it's just KC and PHI. Yeah, that was a weird score bug for the Super Bowl. And like the numbers were huge, and it was like it was a little too geometric. You know what I mean? It was odd. That was an odd score bug.
They're going for this clean look, right? Like they're trying to make it look very clean, but I think this is all just cheap bullshit.
Like to me, that looked more cheap than clean.
Mm-hmm. I agree completely. Well, and that's the thing. I think it's cheap because like then you don't have to worry about getting the current logo. Like one of the cool things I thought that happened was it NBC or CBS? But when the Eagles wore their throwback, the Kelly Greens, either NBC or CBS had actually used the Eagles throwback logo for the score bug, which was dope. I love that. And now they don't have to do little details like that. They just have to tweak like one color in whatever program they're using, and that's it. That's all they have to do.
How much effort does it really take?
Not much.
Like I can't imagine it takes a lot of time, effort, and resources to have that additional like logo at your disposal. Like it just doesn't make sense. So it is a little weird. Is it easier to just have the abbreviation? Yes, but like, I mean, come on, like we're grasping at straws. So
well, and I'm always like, I'm a very pro worker guy, and I'm always on the lookout for companies trying to automate stuff and like really like cheap out there. And this seems like an area where it's like, well, do we really have to get like the really good graphic people? Or do we have to get you? It just seems like another cost-cutting, like cheapskate move. So, boo! All the new score bugs. Let's go back to the old ones. Let's get some pop. Let's get some color. Let's get some damn logos in there, baby.
Spice it up. I want to see some spice. Like, the clean look. It ain't working, folks.
It ain't working. We like spice, okay? And you know where else we like spice? We like spice at the trade deadline. Like we like when Danny Briere is spicy. Danny likes his chicken spicy. We want some spice at the trade deadline, and we're 50-50 right now. And if we're going to get that, we're a week and a half out now, Quigs. And I don't know if we're going to get the spice for the trade deadline.
PTO submitted just in case.
Ooh, there you go.
I always take PTO the day of the trade. The trade deadline and the draft are legitimately like two of my favorite days of the year because it's just
Well,
chaos. It's mayhem.
Now you're here, so you'll be around for the BSH draft party this year. So
I cannot wait. Like, cannot wait for the draft party.
we are going to have some beverages that night.
We're going to get drunk, Steve. We're going to get kicked out of our own draft party.
We are, and that's a victory in my opinion.
Honestly, that belongs in BSH lore. There's a lot of BSH lore that the listenership does not know about. That could be part of it, but
it'll be up there with crab. Yeah. It'll be up there with Crab Fry Kirk when you're not Kurt when Kurt spilled all the crab fries.
I don't know about that one.
I don't know the exact. I just know Kurt spilled a bunch of crab fries, and yeah, there's a lot of BSH lore from even before I was there, and it's been a while since I joined BSH, but I still joined it pretty late in the game because I was doing Flyers Faithful for years first, and then after Flyers Faithful, I did what the hell was it was Flyerdelphia. And then less said the better. And then after that, it was Patterson Avenue, which was fun with all my Flyers Faithful friends. Did that for a couple of years, and then I joined BSH. And Patterson Avenue is what led to this madness that is Flyperbole today. But regardless, going back to the trade deadline and everything. So you took off. I might take a half day. I'm on the fence right now. We're going to see. I might do something in the afternoon that day. We'll see. But I might take a half day. It depends a lot on, how spicy we're feeling about the Flyers. So right now there are 3 key trade candidates for your Philadelphia Flyers. Scott Laughton, Rasmus Ristolainen, and Andrei Kuzmenko. Mm-hmm. And I would say likelihood of trade, I don't even know how to rank them at this point. I'd still maybe rank Risto first because I think he's the best asset of these 3 by far.
He's the most valuable.
Right-handed shot defenseman with size, having a great season, been really solid. That's a guy any team could use. Scott Laughton's a guy any team could use, but I feel like his ceiling is pretty low. Mm-hmm. You're getting him for locker room vibes. You're getting him for heart and soul, for leadership. Mm-hmm. How much can you get for that? I don't know. And then Kuzmenko's the wild card here. I don't think you could get a ton for him, but he might be a one and done with this team anyway. I don't think they'd re-sign him unless he was very, very cheap. So we'll break them all down in a second, but those are your 3 main ones. I'd probably go Ristolainen's the most likely, Laughton, and then Kuzmenko.
Yeah. That I would say, I think it's kind of, I feel like now we're getting towards like kind of a toss up between Laughton and Risto.
I agree.
But yeah, I would say Kuzmenko's the least likely. It just, I don't know. It feels like it's an interesting move. Listen, I know it happens all the time, but like teams, they'll trade for somebody and then they'll flip them again. Like that happens, it's not like this unheard of thing, but like, I don't know. Like for the Flyers, I wonder like if maybe it would be better to just kind of hold on to him, see what you have, because it's not like this is just some random guy. You know what I mean? Like he is a one-time, what did he score? Like 39, 40 goals one season, like his rookie year. Like,
hey, let me pull up his numbers. His numbers are, I continue to marvel at Kuzmenko's numbers because I don't think I've ever seen a player like him.
He's like statistically, he's something I've never seen before.
It doesn't make any sense at all. So I'm pulling it up right now.
Yeah, he had 39 goals as a rookie with the Vancouver Canucks in the 2022.
74 points in 81 games played. Granted, a 26-year-old rookie, but like that's still damn impressive. Nearly a point per game player in his rookie season. So you're like, oh, this guy's got big things happening, right? Mm-hmm. And then he only has 21 points in 43 games for Vancouver the following season, gets traded to Calgary, has 25 points in 29 games at Calgary. And you're thinking, okay, maybe he just needed a change of scenery. Well, then he has 15 points in 37 games played for Calgary, gets traded to Philadelphia. He's got 2 points in 3 games for Philadelphia so far.
Yeah, and honestly, it seems like that trend is happening where like he gets traded to a new place and then he just balls out, and then, he just kind of cools off. So it's an interesting, very, very interesting vibe from him. I will say, personality-wise, he might be the best personality on the Flyers right now.
He's very funny. I love just like he seems very goofy.
He is.
The stuff he's done on the bench, the twerking on the bench, the interviews he's done.
Like, yeah, it wasn't like actual twerking. Like he wasn't like twerking, but like it looked like he was.
It looks like he was, so I'm calling it that.
Yeah,
because simplicity. But it's just like he's a funny guy. He's odd. He makes these just oddball comments, and like I like him. I've liked his offense so far. I think he's definitely brought a nice dimension to his weird little makeshift line with Scott Laughton and Travis Konechny. Yeah, he's looked good on the power play, which is nice because the Flyers power play is usually a hot flaming turd. So that's been good. And most importantly, he's played with Matvei Michkov in the past. He can speak his language. Yeah. So, it's a guy to be buddies with Michkov. So that's cool. Like, I'm totally cool keeping him around for the rest of the season. And frankly, if he signs for under $3 million a season, I'm cool signing him for 2-3 years. Just like nothing crazy.
Yeah, I agree. And that's kind of the thing is like, what would his price tag be? First things first, like, does he even want to stay in the NHL? Because like he could easily go back to Russia and make a whole lot of money there. But if he if he wants to stay in the NHL and, he's like, yeah, I'll stay with the Flyers for, $3 million. Okay. Sign it, even if it's a 1-year thing, sign him for, 1 year, $3 million thing. Cap's going up. Doesn't matter. Like
cap's going up, and look, unless you're a crazy person, this team ain't a cup contender next year.
I mean, probably maybe a playoff contender next season.
I'll buy playoff contender. I will buy that. Cup I don't think they're not.
Yeah.
You need a few more pieces. I mean, I'll see what Danny does in the offseason. I keep going back to Elliot Friedman's big game hunting comment, but I believe they know what they want, what kind of player they want to complement Konechny and Michkov. But until they get that player, until they figure out who the goaltenders are in this team, and a couple other things, I'm not buying in just yet, but there's some good pieces for here right now. So
yeah, no, I agree. And again, like with Kuzmenko, if they get him to return for cheap, 2-3 mil, something like that, which that's really, really low for him. But if he were to come back for $3 million 1 year, do it. I say do it. He's a Russian guy. He could be buds with Michkov. Clearly he's easy to get along with, for sure. Have him around, and he's shown potential before to score almost 40 goals in he was nearly a 40 goal point per game player just a couple years ago. So might as well see what you actually have in him. Maybe he fits. Maybe he just works. Maybe he works out with the Flyers and it's able to stick long-term in Philly, whereas it couldn't in Vancouver or Calgary. So, I say give it a shot. But again, if a team's like, hey, what do you want for Kuzmenko? The Flyers absolutely should not hang up the phone. So,
yeah, I think I really don't know what I would want for Kuzmenko. I know for Laughton, Ristolainen, there's a very clear price for the Flyers, especially Laughton, the price seems to be a first-round pick. If you're willing to give up a first-round pick, Scott Laughton, or a decent prospect, Scott Laughton can likely be yours. Ristolainen seems like a more complicated deal, both due to the history of the player as well as the contract in place. There's a lot of factors going into Ristolainen. Kuzmenko feels more like if you're willing to offer a second-round pick for Andrei Kuzmenko, yeah, go nuts.
Oh, yeah. I'm thinking maybe even a third.
A third I would consider too. But at the same time, much like with Laughton, I would think about the vibes, and I think he's brought good vibes so far. I think he's brought at least some offense because this is a team that can be offensively strapped some nights. We've seen, it's interesting that we're recording this right after a thrashing of the Pittsburgh Penguins, though, in which offense was not a problem, especially for a line that the Forrester Brink Cates line, which was red hot a month and a half ago, something like that, and then kind of went, they were playing good defense, but they were not, producing offensively. Went absolutely nuts last night.
Exploded.
Yeah. They went sicko mode last night. It was fantastic. Bobby Brink, what was it, 4 points in that game?
4 points. Career high 4 points for Bobby Brink.
Yeah. If they could do that more often, we might be talking about the Flyers, the playoff team this year. But
right. I mean, Steve, they're only 5 points out. My God.
I didn't know Jim Jackson was joining me on the podcast tonight. I love JJ. He's like my idol. I adore JJ, but I was cracking up when he kept bringing up like the playoff chances last night. Like they are gone from my mind. If they make it, cool, but like I cannot fathom this team making the playoffs right now. I simply can't.
They're playing great right now.
They are. Beat the Oilers really and the Penguins out of the break.
It's exciting. It's fun to watch. It's also not sustainable. So based off of everything we've learned about this team over the last several months, over the last couple of years, this is not going to continue long enough for them to clinch a playoff spot. Like I don't know how that would happen. So like Mishkov would have to drag them kicking and screaming into the playoffs single-handedly. And honestly, if that exact scenario were to happen, Steve.
That's a full trip to Flavortown if that's happening.
That is spicy. But is that going to happen? Probably not. So
probably not. I mean, I will say we were all expecting Mishkov to come back strong from the Four Nations break, and he's definitely done that, playing great with Owen Tippett and Sean Couturier right now, making some very smart plays. I like the sound of that line as soon as I saw it together, because Couturier and Mishkov both have the hockey IQ to play together, and Tippett just has pure speed. So it's a nice compliment. But the thing is, like, ultimately, this is a team that on most nights is offensively challenged. So Kuzmenko, I'm okay keeping around because he brings that dimension to you. The real questions here are Laughton and Ristolainen. And I thought there were some interesting quotes from John Tortorella earlier today on that. I'm trying to go through my Blue Sky feed to find them right now. I wish I had just put them in the sheet that I keep for each episode. Imagine that. But I'm trying to find them right now, but I can't really find them. But essentially, Torts was saying that when it comes to those players, like when it comes to Laughton, you can't really think like with your heart, you know. He basically said with Laughton, like, look, if we got to trade him, we got to trade him. Okay, here we go. I found it from good old Charlie O'Connor of PHLY, formerly of Broad Street Hockey. How about that? And he was saying with Laughton, Scotty's loved here, but we can't fall in love with players in this business, which is a real, like, we got to make a hard decision on this guy. And if somebody offers the right thing, we trade him kind of statement right there.
Yeah.
With Ristolainen, he said, friendly contract. If we trade him on Friday, we'll be looking for a big RHD on Saturday, big right-handed defenseman on Saturday. So it sounds like of the two of those guys, Tortsy would prefer you trade Scooty Lutz rather than big old Risto over there, big old Risto. And I understand that from the Torts perspective, especially if you're trying to win hockey games with this team as it is, because while Scott Laughton's a great glue guy in the locker room and everything, Rasmus Ristolainen's a guy who they've been depending on to play 20 plus minutes a night on defense and is one of the few physically imposing guys they really have on this team.
Yeah. I mean, well, listen, so let's all right. So let's talk about Risto here. So there was a report today from Kevin Kurz of The Athletic, basically saying that, you know, there's not a ton of interest surrounding Ristolainen right now. Like the Flyers have not been getting many calls, which is surprising because, you know, you've been hearing all these other reports saying that, you know, he's this hot commodity. He's one of the top trade candidates in the NHL right now. So it's interesting to hear that report. Two things here. One, is this just, you know, smoke screen everywhere, a smoke screen? Is that the situation where, you know, trade deadline's coming up, GMs are trying to gain leverage, they're trying to get certain GMs to believe one thing or another thing? Could it be that? Or could that report be completely 100% accurate and teams haven't called on the Flyers yet? That could be true. Now, if that is true, Steve, that does not mean that things can't change between now and Friday, March 7th. A whole lot can change between now and March 7th. And you know what happens a lot at the trade deadline? General managers feel the pressure to make some sort of move to make their team ready for the playoffs. And then they galaxy brain and they just make a very ill-advised decision, and then they trade way too many draft picks for a player who probably isn't worth that much capital or that many assets. And voila, you have what people would consider like a highway robbery of a trade at the trade deadline, kind of like the Tanner Jeannot trade that we like to talk about all the time. So it makes you wonder, like, if that report by Kurz is true, how long will that be true? Like, because again, if it's clock's ticking, it's March 7th, got an hour till the trade deadline at 3 p.m. Is a GM going to say, you know what, we need size on the back end. Everyone in our division just got these big defensemen and they traded for them. Like, we need to do something too. Let's go get Rasmus Ristolainen and let's send a second round pick for the full contract of Rasmus Ristolainen. So, and I don't know if it would be a second round pick or a first round pick. I don't know what it would be, but you can't discount whether that report is true or not. You cannot discount the fact that like things can change real quickly this time of year in the NHL season.
I also just don't see information coming out of that front office unless they want it to be out there. Mm-hmm. It's been a pretty tight ship for the most part. And it seems like most of the time when they've leaked something, it's been intentional. I'm not quite sure what the game is here. Is it trying to let the teams know that maybe aren't involved that, hey, guess what? The water's nice. You come on in and look for that Rasmus Ristolainen, okay? Or is it something else? I really don't know. The gamesmanship with GMs is always interesting to me. And it's also a matter of GMs lie a lot. That's the game, is lying. I mean, it's a game of poker. And the reason I'm bad at poker is I'm bad at lying. So, GMs, to be good at poker, they have to lie. And they all lie. Unless, they're really bad at being a general manager. So we'll see what happens. But I think right now, like, maybe it is true. Maybe there is only a couple teams in on it. It doesn't mean nobody's in on it right now. Mm-hmm. I think Danny's got his price for both Laughton and Ristolainen that he's waiting to see if somebody meets. The thing is, there's no rush on trading either of these guys. These are guys under contract.
Yep.
This is a nice position to be in. With Sean Walker, one of the reasons like it was so pressing to a lot of people was, number one, they got Sean Walker with the intention of flipping him. Like, we all knew it. The writing was on the wall there. And the other thing with Sean Walker was he was only signed for that year. He wasn't beyond that year. So it was trade him, lose him in free agency for nothing, or extend him, which, what was he, 31 at the time? Like,
Sean Walker?
Yeah, or is he 29?
Oh, I think he was like 29. Yeah.
29. Okay. So Sean Walker, almost 30 though. Not quite the window where you want to be signing free agents if you're a rebuilding team like the Flyers. The Flyers really shouldn't be signing guys unless they're fourth liners over the age of 28 right now.
Yeah. Yeah.
I understand signing like depth guys, like Eric Johnson's like a real whatever. Eric Johnson was a press box guy, and we all knew it. And Eric Johnson's been exactly that. He's been a good soldier. He sits in that press box eating those Flyer-shaped pretzels every night, and he's cool with it because guess what? That's what he's paid to do. What a great job.
I would love that job. I'd be so good at that job. So yeah, I mean, a couple things. Like, you're right. Like, Scott Laughton and Rasmus Ristolainen, they don't have to trade either of them right now. They could wait until the next trade deadline to do it, because then it'll be a similar situation to Sean Walker. Well, mainly Scott Laughton, because he will be an impending free agent this time next year. Rasmus Ristolainen, he still has 2 more years on his contract after this season. However, what I want to bring up also is it depends on the GM that's kind of given Danny a call, because some GMs, like, this time of year, they're like, yeah, let's just get a rental. Let's beef up our back end and just try and win that damn cup. But some GMs think of it more longer term, and they're like, well, if someone's out there and we're in position for a Stanley Cup run, but like, why get a guy that will only be around for a few months when we can also get a guy who may help us win the Stanley Cup, and then we have him for 2 more years after that? So like, some GMs might actually prefer to have some term attached to a player at the trade deadline. It really is. It's kind of relative. You never really know what's going to happen. And that's the beauty of the trade deadline. It's so crazy. Anything can go down. And that's why, for me, I'm not reading too deep into, honestly, any rumor that I hear right now. Like,
no.
Do I believe that Scott Laughton is, that the Flyers are listening on Scott Laughton? Yes. And honestly, I've believed that for several years now. And I think that they have been listening to calls. They just haven't done it yet because it wasn't the right deal. I think they're listening on calls for Ristolainen. Could it be more than what's being reported? Yes. Could it be less than what's being reported? Yes. But again, as I said before, things can change. And, there's so much that we don't know this time of year. There's so many different things coming from like all these different angles. And I think that's why this is just such a fun portion of the season, So
it is fun. My warning to people is always don't get too worked up about a lot of this, one way or the other, because so much of it is clickbait, especially in today's media atmosphere. Today's media atmosphere thrives on clickbait. It thrives on riling people up. It thrives on the like quick hit TikTok clip, right? Where people come in and they say, well, I think this is absolutely going to happen. And then nothing happens. And so, reports we're seeing today right now. So the Kurz one where he said that, there isn't much interest in Risto. Okay. And then that the Maple Leafs, I saw the report that the Maple Leafs turned down a deal with the Flyers where the Flyers were asking for their prospect, Fraser Minten. So who knows if that's true? But that's all stuff that's been out there and reported. So there's a lot of news out there, but the Leafs have been connected to Laughton. Makes a lot of sense. The Leafs are a team that they're having a good year as always, right? But a perpetual can't get out of the first, second round kind of team, always looking for that gritty leadership, especially under post Kyle Dubas Leafs. So Laughton's a guy that makes a lot of sense for them. Ristolainen, I've seen him connected to like the Dallas Stars and some other teams, which from what I've heard, the Stars make a lot of sense there. Anywhere else that you've heard rumor wise for either of these guys right now?
I mean, one that I've heard for Scott Laughton was New Jersey.
I saw that earlier today. Distressing, but hey, listen, you ain't winning the cup. Who cares?
Right.
It hurts. It hurts. I didn't like seeing Wayne Simmons in that New Jersey Devils jersey, but that's business.
Yeah. New Jersey, Toronto, bunch of different places he can go. I wouldn't be surprised if maybe Edmonton could be in the mix for Ristolainen. So I think those are some options, but yeah, and who knows? You might have some mystery teams thrown in there as well.
I love a mystery team.
Yeah, it's fun. Whenever I think of like these mystery team situations, what I always remember, and the result ended up being pretty horrible. But I remember it was after the 2010 NFL season, and Nnamdi Asomugha was a free agent. And all these teams were poking around. Was he going to stay with the Raiders? Was he going to go to the Jets and form a tandem with Darrelle Revis? Is he going to go to Dallas? Like, what's he going to do? And then I remember I had just gotten my wisdom teeth yanked out. So I was in bed all day. And I remember I was in bed dying. And I had the TV on. And I just remember Adam Schefter coming on the TV and saying, there's a mystery team who's involved, and it looks like they're closing in on Nnamdi Asomugha. And I was like, oh, I wonder who that's going to be. And then it was just like the Philadelphia Eagles, and I lost my mind. I like sprung out of bed.
It was a big deal at the time. We would regret that very quickly.
It went horribly, but at the time, that's one of the most, exciting days I remember as an Eagles fan was when they got Nnamdi Asomugha.
Motherfucker was eating lunch in his car.
Yeah, had no friends. No one liked
friends.
Him. So
nobody liked him. See, I always think of for the Phillies when they brought Cliff Lee back. That was the big that's what I always think of mystery team, because the Phillies had they had gotten Cliff Lee at the trade deadline in 2009, and he was a revelation. Cliff Lee was fantastic, fan favorite, made that cold ass catch against the Yankees. He was awesome. But then they traded for Roy Halladay, which was super exciting because Roy Halladay was the man. But they traded away Cliff Lee to Seattle. And we were like, why would you do that? Why would you do that? You get Halladay and Lee and Hamels, and then you have a murderer's row. And then that offseason, Cliff Lee was a free agent, and all the rumors floating around, like, oh, is he going to go back to Texas? Like, where's Cliff Lee going to go? And there were a lot of rumors, but then all of a sudden the mystery team came out. John Heyman's talking about the mystery team. I think I stayed up till midnight on like a weeknight.
Oh yeah.
Following this. It was so exciting. One of the best nights, I think, in Philly sports Twitter history. And then we heard it was the Phillies. We were like, holy shit. And then the Phillies signed Cliff Lee. It was like the most amazing day. And that was when they then had that insane rotation where it was Halladay, Lee, Roy Oswalt, Cole Hamels, and Joe Blanton. Just a sick rotation, and they didn't win shit with them.
Sad. You hate that.
But Cliff Lee did live up to every expectation. Roy Halladay lived up to every expectation, and Cole Hamels remains the one of those guys to win World Series MVP. So how about that? But anyway, as far as mystery teams go, love a mystery team. There's a good little rundown on our own site, Broad Street Hockey, from earlier today, listing some of the teams. How about that? Oh, wow. So the Washington Capitals have been mentioned as a team that could be in the mix.
I did hear a report about the Capitals in Laughton.
Yeah. So the Caps could be in there for Laughton. The Winnipeg Jets have been mentioned, which I'm so sorry to Scott Laughton.
I would feel so bad for Scott Laughton if he went to Winnipeg. Although, dude, the Jets, they play with everybody's emotions. Like, they look like such a wagon right now, and we all know what's going to happen if they go to the playoffs. We know we've seen this movie so many times before.
Poor Connor Hellebuyck, just the best goalie in the league every year, and
I feel Yeah. My God.
Gilbs also lists, so these guys haven't been connected directly to them through the rumor mill, but possibilities. The Lightning maybe could be somebody in the mix, or the LA Kings, just due to Briere's history with them. So teams to watch out for within the next week and a half. Good little list from Gilby over there. And I mean, Risto, I wouldn't be surprised if there's a number of mystery teams. Just again, like, that's the kind of player that GMs crave, right? Like,
yes, they love.
Keith Jones loves him. Chuck Fletcher was in love with him. Like, guys love a guy like Ristolainen. Getting that right-handed shot defenseman is a huge deal. The size, the physical, and he's been more physical than I've ever seen him in his career this year. Hell, he scored a very pretty goal against the Penguins last night.
I haven't seen him play this well in his entire career. He's playing. I mean, you're right. He's being more physical than I've ever seen. We used to joke all the time about how he had these little phantom hits, like
the Robert Hagg micro hit.
Yeah, like there were these micro hits. And so he would have those. And, we're like, where are these hits coming from? Like, I'm seeing them on the stat sheet. When did they happen? So
he's hard to play against, Quigs. It's hard to play against.
Well, now he is, because he is being physical. He is adding offense. And dude, I think one of the moments last night that stood out to me most was, I believe the Flyers were on the power play. And puck got dumped into the Flyers zone. Risto goes back to get it. Picks up the loose puck. There's a Penguin right on his heels. He just starts picking up his feet, moving his legs, and he just swoops around behind the net of Sam Ersson, flies up the near wall on the left wing, in clean zone entry into the Penguins zone. And, he's got wheels on him too. Like, I haven't seen him skate this well in his whole career. It's just, this is a whole new player we're talking about now. It's so mind-boggling to just consider and think about how far he's come over the last several months, honestly. Like, we saw him playing better last season, but he was obviously out for most of the season with an injury. But this season, man, he's playing lights out hockey. And it's like, it's crazy to say, because for so long, Flyers fans, the whole goal was, we got to get the hell out of this Rasmus Ristolainen contract. Like, whatever way, anything we can do, let's do it. I don't care. And now we've literally gotten to the point where Ristolainen is playing so well that fans are like, maybe we should just keep him around, So,
and honestly, I won't be disappointed. Like, this isn't the JVR situation from 2 years ago.
This is very
different. 3 years ago, whatever it was.
Yeah.
When, just to remind some people, like Chuck Fletcher, that was his last year as Flyers GM. This was really what was the last straw for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Was James Van Riemsdyk had an expiring contract. Not a great player at that point, but a guy who could maybe help you on the power play, could give you a little scoring punch at the bottom of the lineup. He'd end up doing that with Boston, ended up being a useful, decent little player for them. Not anything great, but, something that you should try to trade for anything. Like, even if you get like a 6th round pick, like, just to get an asset, right? Like, and that was where Chuck Fletcher came out with the infamous, like, this job is hard quote and everything. And that was a situation where the bare minimum was to trade James Van Riemsdyk just to make it happen no matter what. And he failed at it. He didn't do anything. And it was just like so ridiculous. I think there was also, Justin Braun, remember that guy?
Yeah.
Was on the table. Like, there were guys that could have been traded. And
there were moves to be made, and the Flyers were not in position to make the playoffs. And why not move them? Like,
get any asset.
What is the point of keeping them if you have no designs on extending them, And it was just, that was the final nail in the coffin for Chuck Fletcher. So Chucky 2 trades. It was a good time while it lasted.
That day he was Chucky no trades.
No trades for
just zilch, zip, zero, nada. God, I don't miss him. But hey, guess what? We're in a better place now. I think Briere's done mostly some good moves. I've even come around on the Frost and Farabee moves, especially because, like, at this point, like, I'm very much about, like, what happens next? What do we do next? But the difference here is they don't, as we said, we don't have to move either of these guys. I am frankly, and I can't believe I'm saying this, I am cool having Ristolainen for the rest of his contract at this point. I really am. If he's playing like this, like, that's a good guy to have on your team. He really is.
Yeah, could be. It depends on the offers that they get. And, so many like, I will say, personally, I would prefer to trade Ristolainen just because of the fact that, like, right now, his value literally has never been higher in his entire career.
Unless Chuck Fletcher's on the other end of the phone.
Right. But also, like, he does still have some concerns, and mainly it's injury concerns. He has a history of getting injured quite a bit, so it would be nice to just take advantage of the season that he has that's healthy, where he's playing well, and then move him to someone else. So to me, that's a big thing. If he was guaranteed to not get hurt the next 2 years, keep him. Honestly, keep him. That's fine. Unless you obviously get offered something really, really good. But so I say personally, I would try and move Ristolainen. If you get the right offer for Laughton, move him too. But I feel like the Flyers want a lot for him, and I don't know if they're quite going to get that. So
I don't think they should get it either. Like, I like Scott Laughton a lot, but I don't think he's worth what they're asking for.
Yeah.
It's a real intangibles locker room situation. Like, they love his leadership. They love his presence on the team. I like all that stuff too. I really do. But at the same time, like, I think it's better to be realistic and to let other guys stand up and become the new leaders on the team. That's where they're at right now. They have to think about the future, but again, I'm fine either way. Like, I'm not going to lose sleep if they don't make any trades in the next week and a half. I think they should make a bunch of trades, but none of these moves because they've already made a big move. If they didn't make the Frost and Farabee move and it was just going to be completely static, that would be one thing. That was a big move.
Yeah. Yeah, that was a huge move. And, you know, you kind of said it like, oh, maybe the trade deadline's already over for the Flyers. Like, I don't want to go there quite yet, but like, you know, that was not nothing. That was a major move that they pulled off that night. So it's something to think about.
They got a second round pick out of that. They cleared a lot of cap space. And look, we talked about Kuzmenko, but Pelletier could be a nice little bottom of the lineup player for you too.
Before we jump off here, speaking of like mystery trades and stuff like that, is there a mystery player on the Flyers who you could see maybe being like a surprise trade candidate?
Ooh, so a guy that's currently playing for the Flyers that I could see them trading that we haven't been talking about to this point, right?
Yes.
Ooh, that's an interesting one. I mean, obviously, I think a lot of people's dream scenario there is Sean Couturier. I love Coots, but like he's a shell of his former self. You'd have to be crazy to take that contract on at this point.
That'd be nuts.
I would say I'd be maybe like Garnet Hathaway would be one. I don't know if you'd get much for him, but like he's a good bottom of the lineup player. Same Ryan. I was going to say Ryan Poehling, but John Tortorella is in love with Ryan Poehling, so that chance. And
Poehling also hasn't really been playing that well. So like, he's fresh. He's rusty. He's fresh off of that concussion. So
I think overall he was a lot better last year though than he's been this year.
I would agree with that. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say maybe one of the defensemen are interesting in that regard. Like besides Ristolainen, like I'm very doubtful between Sanheim's contract and clauses and everything that he get moved out. Yorkie is, I think he's one of those guys who has to be a franchise future guy, but like,
does he?
That's the thing. I would say like, I would be very, very surprised if Cam York was one of those guys. But if we're talking about like a surprise guy,
that's the first guy I looked at when I was looking at the decor. Who of these players could get moved, you know, in like a surprise deal? And Cam York immediately stood out. And that's not to say that he's a bad player, but like, you know, he has not kind of reached the expectations that were set upon him. And, you know, he's been outplayed. I mean, he's not on the power play. He's been outplayed by Sanheim, Ristolainen. Drysdale all of a sudden is playing great.
That's what I was going to say. Drysdale all of a sudden in the past like couple months has really like upped his game.
Yeah.
Like, he had a beautiful pass in that Pittsburgh game to set up a goal.
Even if he hadn't upped his game, Drysdale, I still don't think the Flyers are willing to part with him yet. I think they want to see this Drysdale experiment through. Whereas Cam York, I feel like it's kind of like it from the outside looking in, it feels like perhaps he might be falling out of favor. So I don't know. That's
an interesting one.
Yeah, I don't know. I was just thinking about that. Cam York.
We started off the segment talking about spice and Ryan Quigley. You brought a spicy one to the end of this podcast, and I like that. That's a spicy meatball. You got the hot honey going, and I'm into it big time.
We're at a spicy time of year, Steve.
Spicy time of year. And also, by the way, I see you're wearing the Zero shirt today. I love it. Love it. Big Pumpkins guy. So all about that Zero shirt. And Quigs, you know, it's a little shorter than we can maybe go, but, you know, it's getting late. We got some stuff to do. So we're going to wrap it up here. But we will be back next week before the trade deadline, guaranteed with some tangy temp for you to talk about any potential Flyers moves that might have happened at that point. Or if no moves have been happened, well, we'll run down the rumors that are happening. So we will be back before the deadline. I guarantee it. You have that Steve stamp of approval and all that jazz on it. But in the meantime, folks, if you have any feedback for us, the best place is on social media. And the best place for me right now is Blue Sky. You can find me at Flyperbole or at Esteban, but if it's for hockey purposes, make it Flyperbole. You can also find me on TikTok and Instagram at Flyperbole. Quick, where can people find you on the socials?
You can find me at Ryan Quigs with a Z on Blue Sky.
Hell yeah. Oh yeah, brother. All right. Find us there on the socials. Follow Broad Street Hockey. Subscribe, rate on all the services, the Spotify, Audio Trough, 3 Men in a Podcast, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, whatever the hell you're listening or watching on. Rate, subscribe, all that good shit. All right, folks. I'm rambling. It's time to go. I love and appreciate you all. And until next time, in the words of the great Gene Hart, good night and good hockey. Wow, 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 wow.